Alright guys, so we are here to ask, what the fuck is Vulkan? Well, here we go. Vulkan lore. Hit me up again, Freezy700.
After the
So Vulkan is one of the Primarchs that was made by the Emperor, and he happened to crash on a planet known as Nocturne. Now Nocturne, as the name would suggest, is a rather dark planet. It's actually classified as both a feudal world and a death world. So the humans who live here are technologically inept, technologically technologically stagnant. Fuck. Excuse me, Morty. Whew. Okay, so while I'm about to Rick Sanchez's bitch. So, Nocturne is a really interesting world because it's covered in fucking volcanoes and ash. So the people on this world have kinda mutated to small bits. Like, for instance, their skin is pitch black. We're not talking black as in brown. No, we're not talking like a bunch of black people live there. No. We're talking ash. Like, their skin is so fucking black that they're the reverse of albinos. They have red eyes, but pitch black skin from just how hot the world is and how resilient these people have to be and how strong they have to be. Now, Nocturne itself is a really fascinating planet that I'll get to in another video when I talk about the Salamanders chapter themselves. But until then, just know this planet is covered in lizards and volcanoes, and it takes about 15 years to equal one Nocturne year. So one Nocturne year, you're basically already a teenager. So, besides that, Vulkan landed on this planet, and Vulkan turns out to be a very interesting Primarch because he's kind of mutated already before he even crashed on this planet. So what mutation does Vulkan have? Well, aside from the black skin that he inherited from being on his planet, he also was a perpetual. Now, what's a perpetual, you may ask? We've never talked about a fucking perpetual. Well, a perpetual is a mutation that really, it makes you immortal. So what happens is somehow, I cannot explain this too well in this short video. I'd have to do my own separate video about it, and also I don't know too much about the topic either, but just know this, is that genetically, you can regenerate from any grievous wound that is afflicted to you. Vulkan, at one point in his life, actually gets disintegrated completely. There is nothing left of him, not even ash, and yet he was able to regenerate fully from this rather traumatizing event. Now, when they regenerate, it's much like Deadpool regenerating. So if you literally cut off his brain, he'll regrow his brain, but he's not gonna keep fighting and having the same personality without his brain. No. Without his brain, he's gonna sit there, starve to death, drooling on himself, not really able to breathe. But once his brain regenerates, then he'll come back to speed and come back with consciousness and continue swinging. So in that sense, Vulkan is immortal, but you can stop him. So if you just impale him and just keep him stuck against a wall for thousands and thousands of years, he'll never be able to get out, as long as you keep making sure that he doesn't, use his superhuman demigod strength to break the fucking pins that you're using to hold him. But that's basically how you could deal with a perpetual. Now, the Emperor is a perpetual. Now, we're going to talk a separate video as to why the Emperor's dying then if he's a perpetual. But basically, short version is, he was hit from both the Materium and the Immaterium, so warp powers could definitely fuck a perpetual up. Now, we don't know if it could kill a perpetual, because Vulkan has been subjected to many warp attacks, and they've never left any permanent scars on his mind. So, now that we got that out of the way, well, Vulkan's a rather interesting Primarch because as we know by the salamanders are very, very into protecting the people. Well, as it turns out, Vulkan is the one who taught them this. Now, the hardy and stoic people of Nocturne, they had no problem taking Vulkan in and their town known as Black Smitter. And this man who had raised Vulkan was named Nibel, Enbel. I'm not too sure how you would pronounce that. Now, the city more or less was called Hesioid, but either way, Vulkan was taken as a foster child. And Enbel recognized this child could be possibly the prophecy that they've always believed, which is that somehow a man will come to their planet and help them prosper. Save them, really, from the dark, evil Eldar that keep raiding this fucking planet. Now, to them, they didn't call them Dark Eldar, because after all, these are feudal humans. They called them something different. Now, Vulkan grew rather quickly. Again, as we stated before, by the age of 3 years old, a Primarch is a full-grown, 20-year-old man, basically, in 3 years. Well, Enbel was a metal worker. He was basically a blacksmith. And Vulkan learned not only all there was to blacksmithing, but also improved upon the smithing and showed every smith in Nocturne how to do things. So again, this is classic Primarch where they learn something, but not only do they learn it rather quickly, they actually beat their trainers and start teaching them new stuff that the trainers never knew. Now, Vulkan rose both in strength and in wisdom, embracing really the culture that people on this planet had, which is, you know, community, humility, and teamwork, using very modest beliefs. Now, Vulkan pretty much took up leadership of this village, this city, and he basically led his people against the Dusk Wraiths, also known as the Eldar, the Dark Eldar. Now, before Vulkan, when these Dusk Wraiths would come, Dark Eldar for short, when the Dark Eldar would come, these feudal humans didn't have any technology or any hopes of beating the Dark Eldar. So they just got really, really good at hiding shit. So, when Vulkan was 4 years old, he said, "Fuck this shit. I am done with people being taken and suffering pain and slaughter. You know what? I'm gonna beat these Dusk Wraiths and kill their asses and get them off my fucking planet." Well, this came as a surprise for everybody. But, what did Vulkan do? Well, Vulkan took his blacksmith hammers, walked out into the middle of town, and everybody in town knew that Vulkan was the strongest human. He could lift up anvils for weeks and just hold his anvil up in the air with no fucking problem. Now, a human could only hold up an anvil for maybe an hour at best, and that's a huge, bulky motherfucker. Because after all, anvils weigh like, 300 pounds more. So, the people were rather encouraged. They respected their leader. Because after all, Vulkan wasn't egotistic. He didn't view himself as a god. He was taught humility, modesty, and in a planet that is so hostile with lava and fire dragons, well, death was rather common. So they learned to love each other very embracingly because life could end rather abruptly. So, fiery passions, basically. But the townspeople walked out of their hiding spots and they basically fought the Dark Eldar. Now, of course, they didn't really join the Vulkan because Vulkan, being who he is, killed every single Dark Eldar by himself. He slayed exactly 100 Dark Eldar warriors. Now, once this news spread, just about 7 people from the most important settlements on the planet came to pay homage to Vulkan, and swearing to forever be at his heel and to forever crush their foes. Now, Vulkan rather transformed rather quickly, and this is only 4 years old, and his legend spread across the world. He already subjugated his world, basically. He's an undefeated warrior, superhuman fucking strength, torn down slave barges, and freed thousands of people, and also his flesh couldn't really rot away from the poison blades that the Dark Eldar used on him. So already he's a god in everyone's image. He can't die. He's super smart, superhuman. But not only that, he actually comes down to people as if they're equals. Even though he's like 9 foot tall and you're just some lowly peasant, he'll actually get down on one knee and go, you know, welcome to my home. How may I help you? Do I need to get you a drink? He's such a bro. Vulkan is such a bro. He's like this giant teddy bear. And that's essentially what Vulkan will always be, and always will be for the rest of his life. Now, during celebration of the Primarch's victory over the Eldar, a tournament was held. You know, varying contests of strength and craftsmanship. But a stranger appeared. This sounds rather familiar. A stranger who's pale, doesn't have the complexions of the people of Nocturne, and his clothes are very golden. Not something that these pre-industrial Nocturne people would have. But all the stranger asked for was to be able to compete. Now, Vulkan doesn't know who the fuck the stranger is. But the stranger claimed that he could best any man at the competitions. A lot of people thought this was funny as fuck. Vulkan, though, accepted the challenge. And they did varying tournaments. They did it where they held up an anvil and they were sitting there for days. And they did another one where they tried creating godly weapons. Both of them were exquisite, same craftsmanship. Well, finally, after 8 days of tournamenting, well, they decided, you know what? We gotta break this tie. That's it. Within 24 hours, we're each gonna forge a weapon, and then we're gonna use that weapon to hunt down these deadly salamanders, basically fire dragons, and then come back, and whoever's got the biggest dragon wins. Cool. I know they're called salamanders, but I'm calling them dragons. Well, both men spent half a day forging a weapon, so about 12 hours. Now, they both made exquisite weapons, but here's where it gets interesting. They both climbed the same mountain, Mount Deathfire, which is the biggest volcano, supposedly, and holds the largest fire drakes. Now, Vulkan found his prey first. He killed it in a single blow, and as he was carrying the carcass back, this volcano started erupting. Oh fuck. Vulkan is now dangling off a cliff and has only one hand on the cliff, and he is holding the tail of his dead salamander in the other. Now, for several hours, he was stuck like this, looking like a jackass. Well, the Emperor came by with a much bigger salamander as a prize, but seeing the state of Vulkan dangling off a cliff, the stranger, or the Emperor really, threw the dead salamander he was carrying as a prize, even though it was bigger, threw it down on the lava to form a bridge, helped Vulkan up with his prize, and they both walked on top of the Emperor's dead salamander that's in the lava, and they got home. And at first, everyone in the village was cheering, yes, Vulkan won. He's fucking amazing. But Vulkan threw down the salamander, threw down his weapon, and pledged his service, his whole life, to this stranger. Everyone's fucking confused. They're like, what? Vulkan, you fucking won. He didn't even bring back a salamander. Vulkan said it himself, but this man threw away the honor of winning the Vulkan because his life was more valuable. Your life is always more valuable to Vulkan than anything else, because to Vulkan, life is sacred. So this really won Vulkan's heart over, to see the Emperor sacrifice glory and honor and pride just for the sake to save a fellow human who he sees in peril. So that's Vulkan. That's the introduction. That's his origins. And of course, the stranger was the Emperor. And the Emperor educated Vulkan on where he belonged in the galaxy. So, with that being said, that is the origins of Vulkan. I hope you guys enjoyed. Like, comment, subscribe. Comment down below what you guys think we should do next. I know I said Michael Barney, I was going to do a Space Marine chapter, but that's because I didn't want to spoil it for you that I was doing Vulkan. Because then you wouldn't watch this. But, let it be known, I like to be full of surprises. And I am working on a Blood Angel chapter, but at the moment it's kind of up for grabs whether or not I'm going to do it. They're called the Sons of Sanguinius, and they're more or less the same as Blood Angels to some extent, just a few minor differences. That's kind of why I'm kind of iffy about doing it. Besides that, see you guys next time.